Simple question heading into Oilers Golden Knights. How many points do 97 and 29 need to get Edmonton through? Because if they're not playing superhero hockey, Vegas is moving on. All right, so we got a rematch of 2023. So for the first time in 3 seasons, we're getting the Oil against the Vegas Golden Knights. And a couple stats that pop out from that series that can maybe translate to this one coming up soon on Tuesday night. McDavid and Draisaitl in 2023 combined for 18 points. Still wasn't good enough for them to get through that series. And let's not forget, Draisaitl was playing on a sprained ankle. He had a bum ankle the entire playoffs and was still pretty good. He also got tomahawked across the wrist in that series by Alex Pietrangelo, who received a 1-game sussy for that. So I'm sure there's still some bad blood there. And I just wonder if Corey Perry, Evander Kane, maybe even Draisaitl take a run at Pietrangelo. So that's something to watch out for. Also in that series, Stuart Skinner, who was the number 1 guy at the time for the Edmonton Oilers. He still may be the number 1 guy. We'll get to that. We don't know if he's going to get game 1, but he had a bad series, and there is some demons there against Vegas. He was pulled 3 times. 3 times. And Jack Campbell, remember him? Had to come in for relief. And he's no longer the backup to Stuart Skinner, but regardless, Skinner's got some demons he has to slay if he starts any games in the series, which he probably will. But the guy on the other side, Adin Hill, was spectacular. .934 save percentage. And as we know, Hill and the Vegas Golden Knights went on to win the Stanley Cup. Okay, let's take a look at the odds. And the sports books have it at -110 apiece. It's a pick'em. Now, I'm not a professional handicapper or a professional odds maker, but I'd probably have this favoring the Vegas Golden Knights slightly. And I understand why it's a pick'em because of the other 2 guys on the Edmonton Oilers and what they just did against LA. Because through the first couple games in that first series, I don't think anyone thought that Edmonton was going to come back and do what they did, go on and win 4 straight. But they did, and it was on the backs of McDavid and Draisaitl. And let's start there. Those boys racked up 21 points in the Kings series. And I think they'll probably need that and more. They might have to hit around 30 points to give themselves and the Oilers a chance to win this series, especially if they don't get any depth scoring. But they kind of did in LA, right? 13 different goal scorers for the Oilers, 6 different scorers in Game 6. None of them named Draisaitl or McDavid. Obviously, these guys have to be the best players, which they always are. When they hit the ice, you just know they're going to make something happen. You know Draisaitl's going to score on the power play. You know McDavid's going to create some unbelievable play like he did against LA in every single game, at least after the first 2 games. That's going to happen. The other guys got to fall in here. Evander Kane, Corey Perry, Connor Brown. Those guys have to score goals. Matthias Janmark, who seems to be a really good playoff performer. They got to continue to provide offensive production for these guys. And that's scary if you're the Vegas Golden Knights because they gave up 3 goals a game against one of the worst offenses in the NHL, at least in the regular season, in the Minnesota Wild. And I know they missed out on Kaprizov for a little while, and Eriksson Ek was injured, and they came back later on, and they were able to play in the playoffs. But they're not an imposing offensive team, not in the way that the Oilers are. And if they're giving up 3 goals a game to those guys, imagine what the Oilers can do to them. So if you're Vegas, you're hoping that you could somewhat keep 97 and 29 quiet, and you'll just take the depth scoring from those other guys. As long as those guys are quiet, Vegas is okay. But if everyone's scoring on the Oilers, I'm going to have to tip the scales towards the Oilers if that happens. Now, most of those goals that the Wild scored against Vegas came in the first 3 games. But in the last 3, that's when Adin Hill turned it on. It was a rough start to the series. In the first 3 games, he had an .825 save percentage. Final 3 games, which were all wins, by the way, .918 save. And like I mentioned back in 2023, .934 save. So we know already that Adin Hill can turn it on and become a serious playoff performer. He's done it. He's proved it. This guy was on Team Canada, right? Adin Hill is a legit goaltender. When you're looking at who has the edge in between the pipes, it's a no-brainer. It's the Vegas Golden Knights. Because for Edmonton, at the moment, we don't know who's going to start Game 1, right? Knobloch hasn't said who's going to start. I'm expecting it to be Calvin Pickard. It's clear that the players are more comfortable playing in front of him. I can't remember what game it was, if it was Game 4 or Game 5. And Edmonton won, I think it was in overtime. And Connor McDavid skated all the way down the ice to Calvin Pickard instead of going the other way and celebrating with the players. That shows you everything you need to know about how the captain and the best player in the league feels about that goaltender. So I expect him to be in between the pipes. But I also expect Stuart Skinner to play a game because Pickard hasn't been in this situation, right? These guys are allowing a lot of goals. In 5 games, Calvin Pickard has allowed 13 goals against. That's brutal. And that's not just on him. Trust me, that's not just on him. Bouchard and Nurse, who we'll get to, were horrible in front of him. They're missing Matthias Ekholm, and they won't have him from round 2 either. It's a big problem. But Stuart Skinner, 2 games played in that series, 11 goals against. They're too inconsistent. The goaltending is too inconsistent to have this Edmonton Oilers team move on and make a deep run. But there is a bit of a built-in storyline here with Calvin Pickard. He was actually drafted by Vegas first in the expansion draft, trained with them before the season started, and then got flipped before Vegas played their first ever game. So they drafted him, and then they got rid of him. So I just wonder in the back of his mind if he's out for revenge, and maybe that's giving him that added bit of motivation, which can only help. Okay, now special teams, and this is where Edmonton, they need to cook here. Let's start with their PK. It's horrible. It's the worst in the playoffs, 60%. And LA had a horrible power play coming in from the regular season, but they were able to capitalize. And a big reason for that is the absence of Matthias Ekholm. This guy logs a ton of minutes. He's their number 1 penalty killer, right? He's on the number 1 pairing. Him and Bouchard are their number 1 pairing. Expected goals between those guys is through the roof. And he's one of those guys who eats minutes, blocks shots, and everybody else falls in around him. He's not there, and they're feeling the effects of it right now. The PK just needs to be better. It needs to be closer to last year's, and I know that's hard to do because last year's PK in the playoffs was at 96%, and most people don't talk about this, but that was one of the best PKs in NHL playoff history. In NHL playoff history, that's how good that was. I don't expect them to get to that point, especially without Ekholm. But 60% is not going to cut it against Vegas. It just won't. You know, Vegas had the second best power play in the regular season. They're 5 for 18 so far. But the PK's got to be better, and it did get better in the last 3 games against the Kings. 3 for 3, 2 for 3, 2 for 2. So they only allowed 1 goal. But that was against a very weak power play. You know, there's a lot of good players on that Kings team, but the power play never hit the ground running at all in the regular season. They had some success earlier on in that series, but then died out. Vegas will be consistent from game 1 through 7 if it goes that long. Now to the Edmonton power play, where that is a huge X factor, right? They could do damage against this Vegas PK. 26th in the league in the regular season, not very good. McDavid, Draisaitl, Bouchard, they have to capitalize on that. They've shown in the past they can have the best power play in the world, and no one even comes close. They got to get back to that point. That's one of the advantages that they do have in this series. It's special teams, specifically on the power play. Get the power play cooking, hopefully improve the PK or continue improving the PK, and you have a pretty good shot at winning here. Okay, now to the defense. And let's first take a look at this Vegas D-core. That might be the best and the most intimidating D-core in the playoffs right now. McNabb, Theodore, Haig, Pietrangelo, Noah Hannafin, Zach Whitecloud. Noah Hannafin can be a number 1 guy on most teams in the NHL. He's currently on the 3rd pair with Zach Whitecloud, who's no slouch himself. Now let's take a look at Edmonton's. Without Ekholm, that is not an imposing one. Plus, that Bouchard-Nurse pair has been horrible defensively. 7 goals against. The Vegas forwards will feast on them. Plus the goalies, right? And I know Eichel was held pointless in the first 3 games. He picked things up with 5 points in the final 3. Same with Mark Stone. No points in the first 3 games, 4 in the last. If Eichel goes, Mark Stone goes. Very important. When those 2 guys are clicking, watch out. Especially with a weak defense like this and inconsistent goaltending. It's trouble for the Oilers. Okay, prediction time. So, I'll start by saying this. So much needs to go right for Edmonton to win this series, right? You need McDavid and Draisaitl to probably have 25 plus points in this series. You have to hope that the depth scoring that you received near the end of the Kings series is there, which you can't really count on because it hasn't really been there, but it needs to continue. The goaltending, it's up in the air. And how much faith do you have in Calvin Pickard? He's been good, but he's never been there before. He's never been in this situation before. Maybe he's already hit his plateau. Maybe he can't break through that. I don't know. Too many questions. Too many things need to go right for Edmonton to win this series, and that's why I'm going with Vegas. I'm going to go with the Golden Knights in 7 games because I also believe that Edmonton's going to win all of their home games. It's just going to be a different game at Rogers Place, right? Frenetic, tons of energy, fast-paced, high intensity. Knoblauch will have last change and be able to deploy his guys against Vegas's weaker lines, and that's a huge advantage to Edmonton at home. But the rest of the way, I think Vegas gets it done at home as well in 7 games. Should be a fun series, and I kind of hope Edmonton prove me wrong and get the goaltending and the depth scoring and all those things, but I just don't see it happening. All right, that's it for me. Thanks for watching this video. Let me know who you got in the comments below. Are you with me with Vegas, or are you going with Edmonton? And if you are going with Edmonton, let me know why. Is it just because 97-29, or is there something else here that you've seen in that first playoff series that's telling you maybe this is the year for the Edmonton Oilers? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching.